Wonder Woman is the fourth official film in the DC Extended Universe, and the first live-action standalone Wonder Woman film we have gotten in this recent era. It is directed by Patty Jenkins and stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, David Thewlis, Robin Wright, and many, many other people. So, let's get this shit out of the way before I even get into the review in any way, shape, or form. I am neither a Marvel hater or a Marvel lover, nor am I a DC lover or a DC hater. It's getting very annoying to me that critics continually have to say this before they make their reviews, but it is something I have to say. I'll defend myself really quick. I probably like about 5 Marvel movies out of like the 20-some that they've made, I think, by now. I like Iron Man is the best by far. Guardians, kind of, Ant-Man, kind of, and then the second 2 Captain America movies. Those are the ones I like. The rest I don't like. Or I'm at least not a fan of. The only one I haven't seen is Thor 2, because I can't find the willpower to sit through that. And then DC, at least their universe, is if we're sticking to their universe, the Dark Knight movies are some of my favorite movies ever, but if we're sticking to the universe, coming into this movie, they were 0 for 3. They just were. I don't hate Man of Steel as much as most people do. I know a lot of people have a lot of fucking gripes with that movie. I don't hate it, but it's certainly not a good movie. And then Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, if you watched my reviews last year, you know how I feel about those. I feel very strongly against those movies, especially Suicide Squad. That was probably my least favorite movie last year. So this movie has gotten very well critically acclaimed, which was a big surprise and pretty joyous for most people. A lot of people, including myself, want to see DC have success, because personally, I'm getting tired of just pointing to the Dark Knight trilogy when I'm trying my best to defend DC and go, they're not that bad. Does this movie deserve a 97%? In my opinion, no, it does not. Is this a bad movie? It is not a bad movie, but this is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination in my mind. I know I'm definitely in the minority of this section, and I think a lot of it has to do with what I'm looking for in movies now, especially with superhero movies, because there are so many superhero movies now. There are so many. There has to be some kind of expectation of going above and beyond, of trying to do something different with your movie. I will give Guardians 2 credit for that. I didn't love that movie, but they went outside of the box. Logan did a great job of that recently. Deadpool did a great job of that recently. Those are 3 very recent superhero movies that have gone outside the box. But you look at something like Doctor Strange, and that is a movie that in its own way, in terms of the story and characters, kind of failed to do that. I never posted a review of Doctor Strange because I went sort of inactive towards the end of the year of 2016 because I had a lot to do, but I wasn't a big fan of that movie. There's a lot of good things in that movie, there's a lot of bad things in that movie. And I feel the same way about Wonder Woman. There are a lot of things that work in this movie, and there are a lot of things that don't work in this movie. And when I walked out of this movie about 20 minutes ago, I will admit to you, more bad things were coming to my head than good things. Maybe not more bad things, but like more prevalent bad things. I had a worse feeling in my head than I did a good feeling in my head. But again, that doesn't mean I think this movie is bad or great. I'm very in the middle of this. I'm very divided in terms of this movie, and I think as the days go along, I'll either like this movie more or I'll dislike this movie more. I don't know. But these are my first reactions to the movie. Let's start with what I liked. The best scenes in this movie, without a doubt for me, by far, are that of those between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. It's where the script is at its best, and it's where the characters are at their best. These are the 2 characters that you really care about. You really care about these 2 characters. Should something have happened to these 2 characters, I would have given a strong shit. If you know anything at all about movies, you know Wonder Woman is probably going to get out of this movie alive. It's just, I was genuinely concerned about these 2 characters because there is something behind them. There's motivation and there's development with them throughout the story. You learn to like them. They're likable characters. And the 2 actors, Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, have very good chemistry together. And you can see it. And they're able to play off each other, whether it's for comedy or actual emotion. And I think their performances very much complement that. These are both very talented actors. Gal Gadot recently popped up. We hadn't really known her much before. She was a side character in a couple of the Fast and Furious movies, and then bam, she was fucking Wonder Woman. And now she's kind of gonna be everywhere, so get used to her face. But she is good. I thought she was one of the best parts by far of Batman v Superman, even though her character was fucking pointless in that movie. And then you have Chris Pine, who is very charismatic and is proving now more and more to be a good actor. He showed his chops in Star Trek, and he's progressing more and more as an actor with movies now like Hell or High Water, and even this movie. These two are very good actors, and they like I said, they have great chemistry together, and that helps with the romance between the two of them, and it helps to develop their own characters. Like I said, the dialogue between characters is best when these two are just on screen together. It is the most coherent, it is the most natural, and you actually care about the words they're saying, because they feel like something the characters would say. You start throwing in some other characters in the equation, and it starts feeling a lot more forced. I'll get into a lot more reasons why in a little bit. I already touched on this. Both performances are great. If I had to pick a standout, I actually would say Chris Pine. He's funny, he's interesting, he has development, he has emotion, he just has that overall character that every time he's on screen, you're just kind of pulling for him the whole time. You really like him. And I think Gal Gadot, going into this movie, we all kind of knew she was going to be good, because again, she managed to be the standout of Batman v Superman despite little bits of screen time. And he just, like, I'm a big believer in supporting performances. I think that they are incredibly important to a movie, and you could argue he's a lead performance. I could probably make the argument he's a lead performance, but to Wonder Woman's story, he's a side performance, and I think he does a phenomenal job with what he does. I think he's really up and coming as an actor. He's still progressing himself, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future. There's one specific action sequence that stands above the other ones. It's probably the one you've heard about the most and the one that you remember from the trailer. It is the action scene between the two trenches, when Wonder Woman kind of gets up and is going between them. It is by far the best action scene in this movie because it's actually coherent and you can see what's going on, and it's not sloppy. It is an action scene that has impact on the story and that really matters in terms of what's going to happen next, not only for these characters, but for the plotline, and at the same time it manages to be a badass action scene. If this movie had taken that and applied it everywhere, this movie would have been so much better. So much better. It would have at least entertained me for the full 2 hours and 20 minutes that I was sitting in the theater watching this movie. There is promise within this thing to be great, but unfortunately it never capitalizes on that. And like I said, I'll get more into that in a second. The strong majority of comedy lands, and that is a problem that DC's been having. People complain that it's too dark. That's not necessarily like too much of an issue for me. It's when it's so dark that it's not enjoyable anymore for a superhero movie, I guess. So they were trying to bring that back with comedy, and the very strong majority of it lands. There were only 2 or 3 jokes that I was like, that's not good. And they were all that Etta Candy character, like that one fisticuffs joke that's in the one trailer. That wasn't funny. But like, the majority of comedy within this movie is able to land. And it's a lot of very good back and forth that makes you laugh. And it helps the characters. Okay. Let's get into what I didn't like. I'll start small. CG. The CGI in this movie is very, very rough. And that is a bad thing. That is something that needs to be addressed. I know a lot of people think that CGI is a nitpicky thing. When you have a movie like this that is incredibly based within CGI, because she has a fucking glowing whip, and she's jumping up really high and going into buildings, and all these explosions are happening, and all this crazy shit is going on. CGI is a very, very important part of the movie, and if it doesn't work, it is noticeable. By God, is it noticeable in this movie. There are so many shots that are really just dragged down by bad CGI. A lot of action sequences that are dragged down by bad CGI because it's noticeable. Whether it's a green screen, or it's an actual vista, or it's an actual action shot, or someone like falling. It happens in the beginning of the movie. It's one of the first few shots and you're kind of going, uh-oh. It's just, it was always weak, and it always drew me out and just made me look at the shot and go, what the hell happened here? Using that, overall, the action scenes in this movie are just kind of poor. They're all pretty sloppily done for a number of different reasons. There's a lot of editing issues with it, and the fact that they cut it so much that it just feels choppy and unnatural. There's a lot of bad cinematography choices where shots are where they shouldn't be placed. There's a lot of odd directing choices and choreography choices that just make this movie, or the action scenes I should say, feel weird. And I think a lot of that, it's weird not complaining about this in a Zack Snyder movie, is slow-mo. There is a correct and an incorrect way to do slow motion. Slow motion is the ability to make a scene that much more interesting, visually appealing, and simply put, badass. It doesn't work in this movie because it almost starts making the movie feel slower. Like, making the action scenes feel longer than they shouldn't be. And then they have action sequences where it's all very fast-paced, and they're always better than the ones that have these annoying slow-motion shots in them. It happens a lot, and the majority of the time, it doesn't look good. That's a lot due to the CGI. And so you have these scenes that are moving slow, that are supposed to be intense, but they're not because they're dragging and they also don't look good. And eventually you just have these action scenes that are just sloppy. They're sloppy. And a superhero movie, a big thing it's supposed to do is give you entertaining action. And if it doesn't do that, that's already a big part of the foundation that is cracked. Now, these two things are what really kind of stopped me from saying this is a very good movie. The first one is the villains. At the end of the day, I said this, I can't remember what movie, but I said this in a review. Oh, Power Rangers. An action movie is really only as good as its villain. You need a good villain to match your hero so that there is an actual conflict within your film. The villains in this movie, in my eyes, are fucking awful. There's like 3 of them, and not one of them is good. That is due to their performances, that is due to their writing, and that is due to their predictability. The main villain, this one German dude, that is just like, he reminds me of being really cliche, like that one villain from Avatar, that like, couldn't be more cliche if you tried. Like, you look at them and you go, oh shit, okay, there's your fucking villain. Like, make it a little more obvious to me, please. He is the worst. He's poorly performed, mainly. And then there's this, like, the way they make him, or try to make him intimidating, reminded me very strongly of the villain in The Incredible Hulk. And that's not a good thing, because that movie is boring as balls, and I've tried to wipe that movie from my mind. Tim Roth, I think, was the villain in that movie. It is one of the most forgettable movies. It reminded me of that. Like, he's just this regular German general, and they're like, how can we make him menacing? We'll give him this pill that makes him stronger. That's new. And then they have this woman with the weird shit on her face who's making these, like, fucking potions. Not potions. What's the word I'm looking for? Poisons. And she, like, makes mustard gas, but then she makes these pills to make him stronger, and it's like, she's kind of weird. A lot of that is due to a bad performance, I think, on her part. And there's this, oh my god, there's this scene, I don't know if it's anywhere, but it's so bad. There's the two of them go into this conference room or whatever, and they leave, and the one girl throws mustard gas in there, and the one guy throws a mask in there, and they shut the door, and she goes, the mask won't help them, and he goes, I know, but they don't. And then I shit you not, they both laugh maniacally, like something you'd see in a fucking Austin Powers movie as a joke, and the fact that someone actually directed that, and then said, perfect, put it in the movie, really kind of hits me home, because it was just awful, and their characters are just so weak the entire time. For me, they never pose a credible threat to the heroes. I honestly think that if you take them and just wipe them out of this movie and make it Wonder Woman and Chris Pine and then the rest of that group versus just the German soldiers, you have an interesting movie on your hands. I think you have something really interesting to work with. There's another villain in this movie. It's a spoiler. I'll stay away from it. If there's anything I could say about it, I thought it was relatively pointless. I thought it was unnecessary, out of nowhere for sure, and just like kind of thrown in there to make you go, oh, whoa, and the movie goes, gotcha, and you go, I didn't see that one coming. Like, it's just, it's so not necessary. But the biggest issue I can point to with this movie, the one that really slows it down, I hinted at it before, this is just a generic, by-the-books, bland superhero movie. It follows a template in a way. You can guess what's going to happen to the characters from the beginning of this movie, because it's just recycled shit. It's things that we've already seen a million times. And again, I feel like we're at a point where there needs to be a new expectation for superhero movies because of how many they are. They have to bring something new to the table in order to stand aside from all the others. For me, this movie just doesn't do that. It just follows this template. It's so predictable and cliche, and it's just like, what's the point then? If you're gonna make a bland, generic superhero movie, what's the point? Just give us fucking Justice League then. At the end of the day, guys, I stand by this. This is not a bad movie, but it's not a great one. There are things that work, and there are things that don't work, and there is a very strong middle ground in this movie that makes me go, it's okay. It's not great, it's not bad. It's DC's best. I will give them that. It's a step up. It's showing us that they have the capability to make something good. There is a great movie somewhere buried in here. And I really hope DC sees that and can capitalize on it. I don't have many hopes for Justice League. I don't have many hopes for Aquaman. But by God, do I want them to be good. I want them to be good. We're getting them anyway, so make them good. Please, check this movie out. It's worth it. Most people are going to like it. It got applause in the theater I was in, and I'm sure it's going to get applause in most theaters. It's worth a watch. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's not a bad movie. But, like, 97%? I mean, shit. That's really, really high. That's really high. So, what did you guys think? Have you seen Wonder Woman? Have you not seen Wonder Woman? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.